There are some really important messages I think come out of this conference, and they really focus on the fact that there are big challenges in terms of oceans, but I'm really struck with the fact that we have a real diverse array of solutions. And one of the problems we have is that the challenges seem to grow faster than we can spread the news about the solutions. And so this is something I think that we as a field have to be much more effective at doing, which is taking good ideas that emerge in small little settings and having them be replicated around the world so that we can actually increase the pace of positive change and change the dynamics of the way things are going in the ocean. And so I see a lot of that excitement here in terms of the solutions, but what we really need is think of ways about how we get those to replicate and get the word out much more effectively. I definitely believe that seafood can be caught sustainably, and we have clear evidence from that. This is a perfect example that if we look at fisheries on average across the globe, the problem's getting worse in the sense that the number of fisheries that are in a state of collapse has been increasing. It's been happening for decades. But that masks the fact that there are many places that have come up with very good solutions for sustainable management of fisheries. And so this is a perfect example of a situation where we need to be highlighting the successes as much as we're highlighting the failures so that we reverse the trend on average by increasing the success of the transfer of these kinds of successes. One of the areas that we've done a lot of work on is really the challenge of solving the tragedy of the commons, which is a really important problem for thinking about marine fisheries, because you have a common resource that isn't really owned by anybody, and that creates a number of incentives for people to do things which are really not in their best long-term interest. And we've seen the evidence of that in a wide range of fisheries. And so one solution to that is to actually put more rights into fisheries. And there's a number of ways that can be done. There are ways where individual fishermen can own a fraction of the quota for a particular stock. Some parts of the world have implemented more spatial property rights in the same way that people own land on the land. You can do the same kind of thing in terms of having exclusive fishing rights in the sea. And a number of these have been very, very successful in terms of changing the long-term sustainability of the catch for those particular fisheries. So that's one of the areas of sustainable fisheries management that we're doing a lot of work on in terms of thinking about where does it make sense to try to replicate that in other places, and how do we create the kinds of incentives for change that'll make it happen. Within the academic community, most of our communication comes from going once or twice a year to a meeting like this where we get together and talk with each other. And that's a very ineffective way, I think, of actually dispersing good ideas, that we need to really be enhancing the level of communication that goes on. And then this is a special conference that it's not just professors hanging out with each other. There's actual people that are, their lives depend upon managing the oceans. Their lives depend on oceans for livelihoods. And so there's an interesting set of interactions that go on at this meeting that's very different from other ones. But those are the exact same kind of communications we need to expand in a dramatic way. So that's not the normal conversation that happens. So when good ideas come out, whether it's a manager in a small little stretch of coastline in Indonesia comes up with a good idea, or an academic at some university, we need to have a much more effective means of being able to communicate these ideas and get them implemented in the real world at a much faster pace.